The World News at 12 begins with the Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria, AMBCN, issuing a notice of a nationwide strike from February 27 over unfavorable business climate. The Kogi State Chairman of AMBCN, Chief Adeniyi Bamidele Gabriel, disclosed this on Tuesday in Lokoja to newsmen. He said the notice was contained in a statement issued jointly by the National President of the Association, Alhaji Mansour Umar, and the National Secretary, Mr. Jude Okafor. He also stated that the organization is closing shops due to the multifarious increase in the prices of baking materials such as flour, sugar, yeast, vegetable oil, petrol, diesel occasioned by subsidy removal and forex deregulation, multiple taxation via federal government agencies. AMBCN added that the federal government effected multiple taxation burdens via agencies like NAFDAC, SON, Nasseria, Consumer Protection Council, Department of Weight and Measures, among others. In a recent development, the International Monetary Fund has said that the Nigerian government has, through the back door, resumed the payment of subsidies on the premium motor spirit PMS, otherwise known as Petrol. Recall that on May 29, 2023, during his swearing-in speech, President Bola Tinubu announced an end to petrol subsidy, triggering a hike in the prices of goods and services in the country. A few weeks later, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, collapsed the different exchange rate regimes into one, with the value of the naira to the dollar weakening. As of yesterday, it was 1,499 per $1 of the official window and 1,515 naira per dollar at the parallel market. Over the weekend, the IMF issued a statement on the conclusions of its executive board's post-financing assessment with Nigeria, and it expressed concerns that the government had capped the prices of fuel at retail stations. In another development, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) Board of Trustees has blamed the President Bola Tinubu-led administrations for killings, banditry, kidnappings, and terrorism in Nigeria. PDP Board of Trustees said the laid-back attitude of Tinubu's administration was responsible for the insecurity Nigeria is witnessing in the last 9 months. In a communique issued after its meeting in Abuja on Tuesday, the PDP Board of Trustees lamented that the situation in the country has become unbearable. The party noted that there is no concrete and coherent policy, measures, and steps by the APC administration to address these existential threats which have put the country in a precarious situation. Meanwhile, the federal government has retracted its earlier statement on the legal aspect of the enhanced trade and investment partnership signed with the United Kingdom on Tuesday. This came following criticisms from Nigerians over the perceived one-sided nature of the Memorandum of Understanding signed with the UK. The Nigerian Minister for Trade and Investment, Doris Uzoka Anite, in a thread on X, retracted her earlier statement, emphasizing that there was no such legal agreement between Nigeria and the UK. The minister reiterated that Nigeria does not have a mutual recognition agreement with the UK and made no commitment under the MOU or elsewhere to allow UK licensed lawyers practice in Nigeria. Now joining me to discuss this stories here on the World News and 90.3 Voice of the People FM is Mohammed Abdullahi, a public affairs analyst. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Mohammed. Good afternoon, Mr. Mohammed. Can you hear me? Now joining me is Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi, a public affairs analyst virtually here on the World News and Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Abdullahi.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, welcome to the World News and 90.3 Voice of the People FM. Thank you for joining me. Well, the Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria has issued a nationwide strike notice to commence February 2027, citing unfavorable business climate. Well, what does this portend for the country, judging from the fact that Nigeria consumes a lot of flour-related food and also the whole issue of a food crisis? What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's not a palatable thing at all, because like you rightly mentioned, we as a country, as a nation, consume a lot of flour-related food. Notable among them is bread, which is like a staple food across the country. It's almost, I don't want to use the word national food, but it's something that is almost unlikely that in a day that we don't consume bread in our household. But again, you don't want to blame the producers, because we all understand that majority of our flour is not even up to 60, 70 or 80% imported. You understand what it means that today, because of the fluctuation of foreign exchange, the prices are skyrocketing. You know, what they import perhaps even in a week's time becomes almost grows by like 50, 60, 70%, if not 100%. So, and then Nigeria majority do not have the purchasing power to, follow that pattern of trend. I mean, of skyrocketing prices. And that's why it's becoming that these products are available. Seriously, the government need to act. The government need to really act. If we say we want to start producing flour at the local level, it's a challenge that might take even up to a year to surmount. So it's not something that can be dealt with on immediate front. I mean, locally. It has to be a long-term thing. The Ministry of Agri, we have so many valuable lands, but we have to, put up a long-term plan to make use of our arable lands, to grow flour.
All right.
But at this particular time, the immediate thing that we need to talk about is that the government needs to stabilize the foreign exchange. It's no brainer.
Yeah, Mr. Abdullahi, this same complaint what almost every sector is currently facing in Nigeria. Do you think the strike is the best way to go about it? And what about the spiral effect the employees are facing and their families?
Yes, the strike might not be the very best, but what other option do the producers have? Yes, perhaps dialogue, but in many cases, even though strikes have not yielded positive results, but in many cases also dialogue have not. Government have been known not to, from precedents, government have been known not to, stick to their promises. You understand? So these producers have little or no choice than embarking on strike, even though there will be spiral effect like you mentioned. Nigerians will suffer for it. There might be no bread in so many regions, so many areas, so many other things that is relatable to flour. But I am not part of the association, so I wouldn't want to suggest to them the best way to go about their dealings, because like I said earlier, the government on its part also in so many cases, too numerous to mention, government has reneged on their promises. So I think it's best to the association to determine what other means or what means to actually challenge government to stick to their promise. And if they think strike action is the best, why not?
All right. Oh, well, Mr. Abdullah, you spoke about most of the products being imported. Well, let's speak of wheat. Well, wheat comes from Ukraine. And do you think the current Russian invasion of Ukraine has added to the high cost of baking materials? Because this is what this Bakers Association also or mainly complained about.
Yes, it's a fact. People conversant with international news and so on and so forth, and international trade. Since the Ukraine-Russia war over a year ago now, I think, that has really, because Ukraine supply, more than half of the global wheat, so it has really affected, the situation. But like I said earlier, if we are a serious country, in fact, even Niger State alone is enough to feed the country and to provide some of these things. So if we are a serious country, we've had Ministry of Agri, the federal level, Ministry of Agriculture at the state levels and so on and so forth. What stops us over a year to take advantage of this situation and perhaps even service the African continent with wheat? What stops us? Is it too much that we cultivate even 50,000 hectares where we have so many lands, arable lands lying fallow all across Nigeria, from east to north to west and so on and so forth? What stops us from taking advantage of the situation that, okay, since Ukraine can no longer supply the world, why not the giant of Africa, as you are so called, to take advantage of that, and then the federal government and the state government and even the local government take the bull by the horn and then, establish mechanized farming all across the country. So we have to be very proactive and we have to take advantage of situations. But here we are. We are still waiting for Ukraine that is in war to supply us. It's funny and ridiculous. I'm sorry, at the same time.
Right.
We have to bear the brunt, seriously.
All right, Mr. Abdullah, quickly, the CBN, Federal Ministry of Finance, the Federal Ministry of Finance have outlined the plan to target national income to above $1 trillion annually using taxes and other revenue net. Well, with the association's demand to waive import duty and other forms of taxes for baking materials not directly affect the income target.
I didn't get that question, sorry.
I said, will the association's demand? Well, the association demanded to waive import duty. I'm saying, will the association's demand to waive import duty and other forms of taxes for baking materials not directly affect the income target?
No, I don't think so. Like we talk about wheat being, flour-based materials or product being staple food across the country. So there's nothing stopping the country, at this critical time, in waiving import duties and some of these things, since we can't produce them locally. Because when you waive import duties on those materials, it actually reduces the cost, you understand? And then it makes it more, It makes it more affordable for the market. So because we are talking about hunger here.
Yeah.
A man, I'm talking of in general terms now, a man can live perhaps even without shelter, can live without some other things, but a man can't live without food. And so it's important that government, think towards this direction. So if it's in the immediate term, take off some of these taxes, import duties, in order to ensure that we have a cheaper wheat or cheaper flour so that we can have food for our masses. I don't think it's too much for the government to do.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, let's look at the fuel subsidy. The IMF, in its report on Nigeria, stating that going by the current price of petroleum products in Nigeria vis-a-vis the deregulation of the sector, the Tinubu government has reintroduced the fuel subsidy. Well, IMF has asked for a complete deregulation of the pricing regime. If Nigeria goes on with that, what do you foresee?
You see, this issue of subsidy will continue to generate a lot of heated debate. Yeah, we don't.
Why do you say so?
Because, yes, you know, I am a proponent of subsidy, you understand, and it stems to the fact that there are two things. We have, you know, a government and the governance system that is so luxurious and so expensive. So you can't have a section, a very minute section of the country enjoying the largesse, while the majority, 95 to 98%, wallowing in almost abject poverty in the name of removal of subsidy. No, if you have all parties, I mean both the governed and the government, you know, bearing, having the impact of the removal of subsidy, then it will be fine. We're talking about removal of subsidy. We are still buying a 150 million SUV for each senator. You know, your president is still flying so many private jets. The first lady is still presidential jet. You know, so it seems it's just for, you know, the mouthpiece to bear the brunt. So that is why, and if you want to fully deregulate, like what the IMF is saying, you know, it means as at this point perhaps we would have been buying PMS at almost 1,000 per liter. You understand? So it means they are right that subsidy to some extent is still being introduced, because I'm sure the government won't want to go the absolute route of the continuous increase.
Yeah, but
in the price of PMS.
I want to know, is there no way that the government can go without this payment of subsidy?
Yes, the way is that you must provide some cushion, some, you know, things that will cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy totally. What the government is doing is that, from report, is that you have savings from subsidy removal, which are just directly given to state government. I'm sorry to use this word, but what have we seen that these various state governments, state government have done with these savings? I know what in December alone, more than 1.something trillion was shared by both the federal government and the state government. What have you seen that your state governors or your local government chairmen have done with such humongous money? Yes, they are savings. So people will argue that why are we saving this money? Why not then, you know, put this money together and perhaps even begin to pay, even if it's quarter or half, not full of the subsidies that's required to take care of at least majority of Nigerians. So these are the arguments out there. You understand? If you have savings, and you are giving it to governors, and we are not seeing the effect, because since May that this new government has resumed office, there has been humongous increase in the amount of allocation given to states and local government. But where are they? Where are these, you know, monies? You understand? Where are these monies? So many people are arguing that if we are saving this lot to state government and local government, and we are not seeing the impact, why not use this lot that you are saving to at least even pay for quarter or half of the subsidies, so that we know that PMS is sold for maybe for 300 or 400 based on your subsidy and every other thing, because everything revolves around oil in Nigeria. So every other thing will go to at least a minimal low for people to be able to afford. Because since the removal of subsidy, you know, transportation has gone high, rent has gone high, school fees, everything that you know of, because our economy is mono economy. You understand? So these are some of the arguments.
Well, Mr. Abdullahi, the pricing regime of fuel seems to have remained stable despite a very strong headwinds against the naira. I mean, that implies the subsidy has truly returned. Why hasn't the government acknowledged it yet? Why do you think so?
I didn't get your question, please.
I mean, I said the pricing regime of fuel seems to have remained stable despite very strong headwinds against the naira. I mean, that implies the subsidy has returned. Why hasn't the government acknowledged any of this?
Yeah, because the government is playing hide and seek. They don't want to tell you that they are returning subsidy because even if the government says the subsidy is returning, this is my own view now, then the Nigerians will begin to question, okay, why are we still buying PMS at 6 something per liter? You understand? Because, before the subsidy was totally removed, it was less than 200. And the government don't want to also say that they are fully paying for subsidy. So it's a kind of dicey situation. Because I remember late last year, even when the rumor, or even early this year, when there was a rumor that a price of petrol might shot up to more than 1,000. And remember, there was so many reports like that. That the government came out quickly to debunk whether it is a rumor or something that was brewing, only God knows. That no, even the NNPC had to say no. There are no plans to increase the petroleum price. Perhaps again, when the Dangote refinery begins to churn out products, maybe we'll have a stable price, like you mentioned, and that will reduce a bit, not all, a bit of our foreign exchange in terms of oil importation and so on and so forth. Maybe we are hinging a lot of our calculations on the full operations of the Dangote refinery, because that refinery has the capacity to supply us all our needs. In terms of PMS per day and more. So perhaps, but in my own understanding, Dangote is not even getting crude in Nigeria. So that's another challenge. You remember that the previous government has borrowed money borrowed money by signing that we will be supplying crude oil. So even though we produce more than what the Dangote refinery requires, we are unable to supply Dangote refinery at the moment. So that's another challenge. You understand?
All right.
So, but by and large, hopefully when we have full operations of the refinery, it might reduce to some extent this challenge we have with foreign exchange and then oil prices.
All right. Finally, Mr. Abdullahi, I would love to know what your view on the IMF stand and the subsidy removal generally, just knowing that Nigeria does not have a social security system.
Your line is breaking. Sorry, what did you say?
Mr. Abdullahi, I just want to know finally what your view is on the IMF stand and the subsidy removal generally, just knowing that Nigeria doesn't have a social security system.
Well, it's going to be a very tough one. It's going to be a very tough one. What the IMF and other international financial institutions want generally is that, we totally remove everything that has to do with subsidy, whether it's electricity, whether it's PMS, whether it's oil, and so on and so forth. But it's very challenging in this part of the world because the infrastructure are not here. You don't have public transportation system. Most Nigerians provide their own security. You pay for security wherever you live, maybe vigilantes every month and so on and so forth. You pay for your own water, you pay for your own electricity, and so on and so many, even basic things like that. Nigerians pay for. So it's challenging for government to now remove everything in terms of subsidy that to provide a little bit of cushion for Nigerians. So it's a challenging one. It's a challenging one. We all understand that, yes. To be candid, subsidy regime is not good for the economy because, it takes away most of the money that's supposed to be saved to do this thing. But our challenge has been these monies that are even being saved or not saved are being, allow me to use the word, are being looted. You understand?
Okay.
So that's why I said earlier, how do you account for so many increase that will the subsidy
Mr. Abdullah,
by state and local government?
Okay.
In Nigeria.
All right. You quickly spoke about Dangote refinery. I would love to follow up on that question. A lot of Nigerians are expecting the fuel price to go down once the Dangote refinery comes on. But, the NNPC boss told us that there's no guarantee on that. Now, Dangote is in the process of importing crude oil from the US. And what does this throw up for our economy?
The NNPC, I mean, they are very right. Like I told you earlier, that we are not able to supply even crude oil to Dangote that is even located here within our country. So it will be difficult that you have the prices of PMS reduced, even when it becomes fully operational and is turning out refined oil. It will be difficult because of the reason you just mentioned. Dangote is still in the verge of, or on the verge of importing crude from either US or Brazil. You understand?
Okay.
The only saving grace for Nigeria is that we will have a bit more of savings in terms of our foreign exchange. You remember that the NNPC and other major marketers had to import petroleum products from abroad.
Yes.
So it means this will be cut off now if we have Dangote here, because we'll be, the supply will be easier, not like what we go to in importing petroleum product from abroad. So those are just the major benefit at the moment. Perhaps as time goes by, maybe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years and so on,
all right,
we'll also begin to see reductions in prices.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Abdullahi. Thank you for joining me on the World News here on 90.3 FM. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Yeah.
Elsewhere, human rights activist Femi Falana has asked that the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation to publish the monthly allocation to states and local government. Falana made this call in an interview on Tuesday. He noted that the government must be transparent to convince Nigerians what it is doing with the proceeds from the removal of oil subsidy. The senior lawyer urged the media to always demand the monthly allocation to every tier of government. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. After the break, we'll bring you stories on the foreign scene. On the foreign scene, Russia declared Estonian leader Kaja Kallas and several other European officials as wanted on Tuesday over their alleged involvement in the destruction of Soviet-era war memorials. The monument, some of which commemorates the Red Army, had long been controversial in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and seen by many as symbols of their time under Soviet occupation. The three Baltic states began removing and demolishing some of them in response to Russia's full-scale assault on Ukraine in 2022, prompting outrage in Moscow. Kallas appeared on the Russian Interior Ministry's wanted list early on Tuesday, along with Estonian State Secretary Termir Petrol and a number of other officials. And that's it on the World News at 12. Just before we wrap up, let's take a look at the top stories again. Bakers to begin nationwide strike February 27 due to rise in production cost. IMF confirms return of petrol subsidy under Tinubu. PDP's Board of Trustees claims that President Tinubu's laid-back attitude cause of insecurity. Federal government lament UK lawyers can't practice in Nigeria. On the foreign scene, Russia declares Estonian Prime Minister Kallas wanted in war memorials spat. And that's it on the World News at 12. My name is Kayla Abraham. Good afternoon and thank you for listening. Please follow our social media handles at VOP903FM. For coverage of your live event and brand news mentions in our news bulletins, do send a mail to news@voiceofthepeople.ng.